Chapter 1. Understanding the Power of Emotions. In a world that moves fast, where deadlines loom and social pressures are ever present, emotions can often seem like an unstoppable force. They rise within us like tides, pushing us toward actions and reactions that we may later regret. We know that emotions have the potential to shape our lives in ways both positive and negative. But what if we told you that there is a way to not only understand your emotions, but to master them, to take the reins and direct your emotional energy toward the life you truly desire? Emotions are neither good nor bad. They are simply a part of being human. Yet many people live in fear of their emotions. Fear of anger that burns too brightly, sadness that consumes too deeply, or fear that paralyzes them in the face of opportunity. But what if these same emotions, if properly understood and directed, could become your greatest allies? What if they could be the fuel for your growth rather than the chains that hold you back? At the heart of mastering your emotions is the recognition that your feelings are not facts. They are signals, messengers that can offer invaluable insight into what's happening inside of you. But, just like any message, you must choose whether or not to listen, and more importantly, how to respond. Emotions are powerful, yes, but they are not in charge of you unless you allow them to be. It's your thoughts, beliefs, and actions that hold the true power. Consider a time when you were overwhelmed by a wave of emotion. Maybe it was anger after a stressful encounter or sadness that lingered for days. In those moments, it can feel as though the emotion owns you. You may have even acted impulsively, shouting at someone, retreating into isolation, or making decisions that, in hindsight, weren't in your best interest. But what if you had stopped for a moment before reacting? What if you had taken a deep breath, observed your emotions, and responded with clarity instead of being swept away by the current? This is the beginning of emotional mastery, recognizing that you are not a slave to your feelings, but a conscious observer. In the coming chapters, we will explore how you can step into this observer role and, with intention, shift your emotional energy into actions that move you closer to the life you want to create. The truth is, mastering your emotions starts with awareness. It begins the moment you realize that emotions are not something that happens to you, but something you experience within you. They arise in response to your thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. And while you can't always control the initial emotional reaction, you do have power over how long you allow that emotion to dictate your actions. Imagine for a moment a life where you can feel every emotion, full anger, sadness, joy, fear, without it spiraling out of control. Picture yourself stepping into each emotional experience with calm, centered awareness. Instead of reacting impulsively, you take a moment to check in with yourself. What am I really feeling? Why am I feeling this way? How can I respond to this emotion in a way that serves my highest good? This is where true emotional intelligence begins. It's not about suppressing or ignoring your emotions. It's about allowing them to exist without letting them dominate your life. You become the captain of your ship, not the waves that threaten to crash it against the rocks. Emotions are not your enemy. They are powerful tools, waiting for you to wield them. As you dive deeper into this journey, you'll start to recognize patterns in your emotional responses. Perhaps you tend to react with anger when you feel misunderstood, or maybe you withdraw into sadness when things don't go your way. These patterns, while automatic, are not set in stone. They can be unlearned, reshaped, and replaced with new, healthier ways of responding. This process takes time, patience, and a willingness to grow. In the next part of this chapter, we'll explore how to deepen your understanding of your emotions. I will look at how to identify the root causes of your feelings, how to observe your emotional patterns, and how to take the first steps toward emotional freedom. But before we move forward, take a moment to reflect on the following. What is one emotion that has controlled your actions in the past? How did it feel when it took over? What do you think would have happened if you had responded to it differently? These reflections are the starting points. They are the stepping stones on your path to emotional mastery. Now that we've established that emotions are not to be feared, but rather understood, it's time to dive deeper into emotional awareness. Awareness is the cornerstone of emotional mastery, and without it, emotions will continue to control you rather than the other way around. So, let's take a closer look at how we can begin to become more aware of our emotions. The first step is simple: observe your emotions. You've likely heard the phrase, feel your feelings, but what does that really mean? To feel your feelings is not just to acknowledge their presence, but to fully experience them. It's easy to ignore or suppress emotions, especially the uncomfortable ones. But in doing so, you may miss the opportunity to learn from them. Emotions carry messages, and it's essential to understand what those messages are telling you. Start by tuning into your body. Emotions have a physical presence. When you feel anxious, for example, your heart rate may increase, your palms may sweat, and your stomach may tighten. When you feel joy, your body might relax, and you might feel a lightness in your chest. By observing these physical sensations, you begin to identify the emotions you are experiencing before they overwhelm you. Try to catch your emotions in the moment. The next time you feel a surge of emotion, pause and take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Is it frustration, anger, fear, sadness? Each emotion has its own signature. Once you name it, you can begin to understand its cause and its influence on your thoughts and behaviors. It's important to note that emotions are not always as straightforward as they seem. Often, what you feel on the surface is just a mask for a deeper emotion. For example, when you feel anger, what might lie beneath the surface is hurt or fear. Anger is often a reaction to feeling powerless or vulnerable, but most people are more comfortable with the intensity of anger than with the feeling of vulnerability. The key here is to dig deeper, to ask yourself, what am I really feeling? This kind of self-inquiry is the foundation of emotional intelligence. The more you practice this awareness, the more quickly you'll be able to recognize the underlying causes of your emotions. Instead of reacting impulsively, you'll be able to pause, reflect, and choose how you respond. Another essential part of emotional awareness is understanding emotional triggers. Triggers are situations, people, or experiences that activate specific emotional responses. For example, you may have a particular person in your life who always seems to make you feel angry or defensive, or maybe a certain situation at work always leaves you feeling overwhelmed. Understanding your triggers is essential because it gives you the power to anticipate your emotional reactions and make conscious decisions about how to handle them. It's helpful to keep an emotional journal for this purpose. In your journal, note the moments when you feel intense emotions. What triggered them? Were there any patterns in the situations that sparked your feelings? Did your emotions influence your thoughts or behaviors in ways that you didn't like? By recording these experiences, you start to create a roadmap of your emotional landscape. As you observe and track your emotions, you'll begin to notice that many of your emotional responses are automatic. They're driven by deeply ingrained beliefs and past experiences. For example, if you grew up in an environment where emotional expression was suppressed, you might find it difficult to express your feelings as an adult, especially in situations where you feel vulnerable. Alternatively, if you were often criticized or invalidated as a child, you may become defensive or anxious when faced with criticism as an adult. This is where understanding your beliefs becomes vital. Our beliefs shape how we interpret the world and therefore how we respond emotionally. If you believe that the world is a dangerous place, you may find yourself feeling anxious or fearful in situations that others might not see as threatening. If you believe that you are unworthy of love or success, you may feel a deep sense of insecurity or frustration when faced with challenges. The good news is that these beliefs are not set in stone. Just as they were formed over time, they can be reshaped. This doesn't happen overnight, but through continuous awareness, reflection, and intentional change, you can begin to shift your beliefs and transform your emotional responses. To master your emotions, You must first become aware of your emotional landscape, the triggers, the beliefs, and the automatic reactions that shape your daily experiences. With time, this awareness will give you the ability to step back and evaluate your feelings, rather than being swept away by them. You will begin to recognize that you are not your emotions. They are simply a part of your experience. By separating yourself from your emotions, you create the space to choose how to respond. At this point, it's important to understand that emotional mastery is not about suppressing or ignoring your feelings. It's about choosing how you respond to them. Emotions will always be a part of your human experience. They will ebb and flow, rise and fall. But when you are fully aware, you have the power to direct that emotional energy in ways that serve your highest good. As you continue on this journey of emotional mastery, keep in mind that there is no perfect state of emotional control. The goal is not to eradicate your emotions, but to learn how to flow with them, rather than be controlled by them. It's a lifelong practice of awareness, reflection, and intentional action. Chapter 2: The Power of Emotional Responses. Having explored the foundational concepts of emotional awareness, we now move deeper into the realm of emotional responses, the choices you make when emotions arise. Emotions are natural and inevitable. They are part of the human experience. But while we cannot always control when or how emotions appear, we have the profound ability to choose how we respond to them. Let's begin by considering the two primary ways in which people tend to respond emotionally: reaction and response. Though these terms may seem similar, they represent two very different approaches to dealing with emotions. When you react to an emotion, you're often acting on impulse, driven by the intensity of the feeling in the moment. Reactions are automatic, often unconscious, and can sometimes lead to outcomes you regret. For example, if you feel anger rising within you, you may react by shouting, becoming defensive, or even lashing out. Similarly, if you feel sadness or disappointment, you may withdraw, shut down, or engage in self-destructive behaviors. A reaction at its core is a lack of control. It is being swept away by the emotional current without being able to pause, reflect, and choose a more thoughtful course of action. In these moments, you feel as though your emotions are in the driver's seat, and you are simply along for the ride. On the other hand, a response is a conscious decision, a thoughtful, measured approach to an emotion. When you respond, you are in control. You acknowledge the emotion and its message, but you decide how to channel it. You pause before acting. Consider the possible consequences of your actions, and choose the response that aligns with your values and goals. This distinction is powerful because it gives you the option to break free from the habitual patterns of emotional reaction. By shifting from reaction to response, you create a space between the feeling and the action. In that space, you have the ability to choose, and in that choice lies your power. For example, let's say you're at work and a colleague criticizes you harshly in front of a group. Your initial instinct may be to react with anger or frustration. You might want to defend yourself immediately, argue back, or retreat into shame. But if you take a moment, breathe, and ask yourself, how do I want to handle this? You open the door to a much more powerful choice. Perhaps you choose to respond with calmness and composure, acknowledging the criticism with grace, or you decide to address it privately after the meeting, avoiding a confrontation in the moment. This ability to pause and make a conscious choice is at the heart of emotional mastery. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending they don't exist. It's about choosing how to express them in a way that serves you, your relationships, and your long-term goals. In mastering your emotions, it's important to remember that emotions, in and of themselves, are neutral. They are simply signals from your body and mind communicating your internal state. What matters is how you interpret and respond to those signals. Let's take a look at fear, for example. Fear is often viewed as a negative emotion, something to avoid at all costs. When fear arises, many people react by shutting down, avoiding the situation, or trying to escape. However, fear can also be an incredibly powerful force when used consciously. Fear, can be a signal that you are about to step outside your comfort zone, to take on something new and challenging. Instead of allowing fear to paralyze you, you can choose to view it as a motivator, a signal that you are growing and evolving. By consciously responding to fear with courage, you can use it to propel yourself forward rather than let it hold you back. Similarly, anger is often seen as an emotion that must be suppressed or avoided. But anger, when channeled properly, can be a powerful force for positive change. Anger often arises when we feel wronged, disrespected, or powerless. Instead of reacting with aggression or frustration, you can use your anger as a fuel to set boundaries, assert yourself, or advocate for change. Anger, when used as an ally, can be a catalyst for action rather than a source of destruction. The key to mastering emotional responses is understanding that your emotions are not inherently bad or good. They are simply energy. When you allow yourself to fully feel them, acknowledge them, and choose how to express them, you take back the power that emotions once had over you. This is where discipline comes into play. Emotional mastery requires a steady, consistent effort. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's not about never feeling strong emotions. It's about creating a space between the feeling and the reaction, where you have the ability to pause, reflect, and decide how to respond. Think of discipline as the bridge between your emotions and your actions. The more you practice emotional awareness, and the more you practice responding rather than reacting, the stronger that bridge becomes. Over time, your ability to control your emotional responses will become second nature, and you'll find that you're no longer a prisoner to your emotions. As we continue our exploration of emotional mastery, we now turn our attention to emotional resilience, a critical aspect of mastering your emotions. Emotional resilience is the ability to navigate life's challenges, setbacks, and disappointments without being consumed by them. It's the capacity to bounce back from adversity, to remain steady in the face of hardship, and to continue moving forward with strength and purpose, even when the emotional tides are high. We all face difficult emotions. Loss, failure, rejection, fear, and frustration are a part of life. But what separates those who thrive from those who struggle is how we respond to these emotions. Resilience doesn't mean avoiding pain or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. So it's about acknowledging your feelings, processing them, and using them as fuel to grow stronger. To understand resilience, consider a tree in a storm. When the wind blows, the tree may bend, its branches may shake, and some leaves may fall. But the tree doesn't break. It bends, it flexes, it endures. And when the storm passes, it's still standing, perhaps a little more weathered, but with deeper roots, having been strengthened by the very winds that once threatened to topple it. This is the essence of emotional resilience, the foundation of emotional resilience. Self-compassion. One of the first steps in cultivating emotional resilience is self-compassion. Resilience is not about being invulnerable or impervious to pain. It's about being kind to yourself in the face of difficulty. Too often, when we experience negative emotions, we respond with self-criticism, judgment, or harshness. We beat ourselves up for feeling sad, for being upset, or for struggling with fear. This only adds to our emotional burden and makes it harder to recover. Self-compassion is the antidote to this. It means treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and support that you would offer a close friend. When you're going through a tough time, instead of criticizing yourself for feeling overwhelmed, you acknowledge your pain with gentleness. You give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling without shame or guilt. And you remind yourself that it's okay to be human, to have moments of weakness, and to need time to heal. Consider a time when you were facing a setback. Perhaps it was a personal disappointment, a failure, or a loss. Did you show yourself kindness? Or did you criticize yourself? Did you give yourself the grace to feel and heal? Or did you rush through the pain, ignoring your emotions in the hopes that they would just go away? The truth is, emotional resilience begins with acceptance. It's about accepting that life is full of ups and downs, that emotions are a natural part of the human experience, and that you don't have to be perfect in order to be resilient. By embracing your imperfections and offering yourself compassion, you begin to lay the groundwork for emotional resilience. A powerful tool for building emotional resilience is shifting your mindset. Your mindset shapes how you interpret the world and how you react to the events that unfold in your life. When faced with a setback, your mindset can either make the experience feel like a catastrophe or an opportunity for growth. For instance, if you approach a challenge with a fixed mindset, the belief that your abilities and traits are static and unchangeable, you may see setbacks as signs of personal failure. You might think, I'm not good enough, or I'll never get through this. This type of thinking breeds helplessness, and it drains your emotional resilience. However, if you adopt a growth mindset, you'll view setbacks as temporary obstacles that can be overcome with effort, learning, and perseverance. Instead of seeing failure as a reflection of your worth, you see it as a chance to grow and develop. You think, this is tough, but I can learn from it. I can improve. Hey, this doesn't define who I am. This shift in thinking is not just a motivational slogan, it's rooted in psychology. Research has shown that people with a growth mindset are more likely to embrace challenges, persevere through difficulties, and ultimately succeed. When you adopt a growth mindset, you see obstacles as stepping stones, not roadblocks. You develop resilience by viewing every setback as an opportunity to learn, adapt, and strengthen your emotional muscles. Another essential component of emotional resilience is adaptability. Life is unpredictable and things often don't go as planned. People get sick, relationships change, careers shift, and unexpected challenges arise. Resilient people are not those who have never faced adversity. They are those who can adapt to changing circumstances, pivot when necessary, and remain steady in the face of uncertainty. Adaptability is about flexibility in your thoughts and emotions. It means being able to adjust your perspective when things don't go as expected. It means learning how to shift from a place of frustration or disappointment to one of acceptance and action. It means knowing that even when things seem out of control, you still have the ability to choose your response. Take a moment to think about the last time your life didn't go as planned. How did you respond? Did you hold tightly to the original plan, resisting change and fighting against reality? Or did you take a deep breath, reassess the situation, and adjust your approach? The more adaptable you become, the more resilient you will be. Resilience isn't about holding on to things that are out of your control. It's about releasing what you cannot change and focusing your energy on what you can. While self-compassion and mindset shifts are powerful tools, it's important to recognize that resilience is not something you have to cultivate in isolation. Humans are social creatures, and we thrive on connection. Emotional resilience is strengthened when we lean on others for support, guidance, and encouragement. Whether it's a trusted friend, a mentor, a therapist, or a community, having a support system is essential for maintaining emotional strength. When you're feeling overwhelmed, talking to someone you trust can offer a fresh perspective and a sense of relief. A support system provides not only emotional comfort, but also practical advice and encouragement, helping you navigate difficult times with more clarity and confidence. Remember that resilience is not about doing everything on your own. It's about having the wisdom to reach out when needed, to ask for help, and to allow others to support you as you support yourself. Chapter 3. The Discipline of Emotional Control. Now that we have explored awareness and resilience, we turn our attention to one of the most important components of mastering your emotions: discipline. Emotional control is not an inherent trait that some people possess, and others do not. It is a skill that can be developed through consistent practice, dedication, and most importantly, discipline. It's easy to think that emotions are something we have little control over, but when you recognize that your emotions are shaped by your thoughts, beliefs, and habits, you begin to see that you can direct them. Discipline and emotional control is not about stifling your feelings or ignoring them. It's about developing the ability to respond rather than react, to consciously choose how you wish to express your emotions. It's the difference between being driven by your feelings and being in charge of them. And just like any other skill, it takes time and consistent practice. Imagine a muscle that grows stronger with each use. The more you practice discipline in controlling your emotions, the stronger your ability to regulate them becomes. Over time, This practice allows you to build emotional stamina. You'll find that you become more grounded, more centered, and more capable of handling life's challenges with a calm, steady mind. This doesn't mean that emotions will disappear or that you won't feel upset at times. It means that you will learn to manage them in a way that helps, not hinders, your personal growth. The first step in cultivating this kind of discipline is recognizing the power of your thoughts. The thoughts you think directly influence the emotions you feel. When you learn to monitor your thinking patterns, you can begin to catch negative or destructive thoughts before they spiral out of control. Thoughts such as, I'll never be good enough, or this is too hard, can trigger feelings of inadequacy, frustration, or helplessness. But when you practice discipline, you train yourself to replace these thoughts with more constructive ones, like, I am doing my best, or this is a challenge I can learn from. The key here is mindful awareness. Pay attention to your internal dialogue, especially during moments of emotional intensity. When you feel overwhelmed, take a step back and ask yourself, what am I telling myself right now? Is this thought serving me? How can I reframe it in a more positive light? This simple practice of monitoring and shifting your thoughts is the foundation of emotional discipline. Once you begin to control your thoughts, you can better control your emotions. And when your emotions are in check, your behavior becomes more aligned with your goals, values, and intentions. You are no longer a slave to impulsive reactions. Instead, you act with purpose and intention, even in the face of intense feelings. It's important to note that discipline and emotional control is not about perfection. There will be times when your emotions get the best of you. You may find yourself getting angry, anxious, or frustrated in ways that don't align with your highest intentions. But instead of beating yourself up over these moments, use them as learning opportunities. Be kind to yourself when you slip up. Understand that emotional discipline, like any other skill, is a lifelong process, and each challenge you face is an opportunity to grow stronger. Every time you choose to respond with intention, rather than react out of impulse, you build your emotional muscle. It's the small, everyday choices that make the biggest impact. The more you practice emotional control, the more natural it will become. Over time, your emotional responses will become more balanced, measured, and in line with your true desires and goals. It's also essential to understand that emotional discipline involves setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is a form of emotional self-respect. When you allow others to treat you in ways that violate your emotional well-being, you compromise your ability to stay grounded and centered. Setting boundaries allows you to protect your emotional energy, ensuring that you have the space and peace of mind to maintain control over your feelings. In the face of difficult emotions, boundaries might look like taking a step back from a heated conversation, saying no when you're overwhelmed, or distancing yourself from situations that drain you. Boundaries are not about shutting people out or being rigid. They are about protecting your emotional integrity so that you can respond with clarity and wisdom. And the path to emotional mastery requires self-discipline, the ability to recognize your emotional triggers, to pause before reacting, and to choose your response in a way that aligns with your values. This discipline is what separates those who are constantly tossed around by their emotions from those who remain steady and calm, regardless of what life throws their way. As we delve deeper into emotional mastery, we now look at one of the most important principles of emotional control: consistency. Consistency is the foundation upon which emotional discipline is built. It is the practice of showing up for yourself day after day, regardless of how you feel in the moment. While emotional control might seem challenging at first, the key to success lies in making it a daily habit. And think of any skill you've ever learned. Whether it's playing an instrument, learning a new language, or developing physical strength, progress doesn't come from occasional bursts of effort. It comes from daily practice, even when the results aren't immediately visible. The same is true for mastering your emotions. Emotional control isn't something you can achieve with a single breakthrough or moment of insight. It is built slowly, through repeated effort and a commitment to staying consistent, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable it may feel in the beginning. The journey to emotional mastery involves creating habits that support your emotional well-being. It's not enough to be aware of your emotions or to understand how to respond to them. You must practice these strategies consistently until they become second nature. Over time, as you continue practicing emotional awareness and control, you will begin to see the results in your day-to-day life. Your responses will become more measured, your emotional reactions more balanced, and your ability to stay calm in stressful situations more developed. Consistency, however, is not about perfection. There will be days when you falter, when your emotions get the best of you, and when you slip back into old patterns. This is not a failure. This is part of the process. What matters is not that you are perfect, but that you remain committed to the journey. Each time you find yourself in a difficult emotional state and choose to step back, reflect, and reframe your thoughts, you are reinforcing the habit of emotional control. The more you practice, the easier it will become to make these choices automatically, no without thinking twice. Consider this. How often do you check in with yourself throughout the day? How often do you pause, take a breath, and ask, how am I feeling right now? What is this emotion trying to tell me? How can I respond to this in a way that aligns with my values? This moment of pause is key to emotional mastery. When you take a few seconds to check in with yourself and choose a thoughtful response, you strengthen your ability to remain in control. Consistently practicing this habit helps you shift from reacting out of impulse to responding with intention. Consistency also means developing emotional resilience over time. As you face different challenges in your life, you will encounter setbacks, obstacles, and moments of vulnerability. These experiences provide invaluable opportunities for growth. With each emotional hurdle you face, you become more resilient. You learn to navigate your emotions with grace and strength rather than being swept away by them. Another aspect of consistency is accountability. Having someone in your life, whether it's a mentor, a coach, or a close friend, who holds you accountable can make a significant difference in your emotional journey. Accountability creates a sense of responsibility, and it helps you stay committed to your emotional well-being. It's much easier to stay consistent when someone else is supporting you, reminding you of your progress, and encouraging you to keep going, even when it feels tough. Equally important is celebrating your progress. It's easy to focus on what still needs to be done and overlook the small victories along the way. When you make progress, no matter how small, take a moment to celebrate it. Each time you catch yourself in an emotional reaction and choose to pause and respond thoughtfully, you're making progress. Each time you successfully set a boundary or manage a difficult emotion, you're strengthening your emotional control. Acknowledging and celebrating these wins reinforces your commitment and keeps you motivated to continue. Ultimately, emotional mastery is not a destination, it's a lifelong journey. There will always be new challenges, new emotions to navigate, and new opportunities to practice discipline and consistency. But with each day, each choice, and each moment of self-reflection, you will continue to strengthen your emotional resilience and control. Over time, you will find that your emotional responses become more aligned with your true desires, and your ability to navigate life's challenges becomes more effortless. It's important to remember that emotional mastery is not about avoiding difficult emotions. It's about learning to dance with them. It's about acknowledging their presence, understanding their message, and choosing to move forward with purpose and clarity. Emotions are not obstacles. They are opportunities for growth. They are the signals that guide us on our journey. And when we learn to listen to them, we unlock a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. In the next chapter, we will explore how to transform negative emotions into positive outcomes. We'll discuss how to use emotions like fear, anger, and sadness to propel you forward rather than holding you back. By shifting your perspective and learning to use your emotions as fuel, you can begin to create the life you truly desire. Chapter 4, Part 1. Transforming negative emotions into positive outcomes. As we continue our journey toward emotional mastery, we now turn to one of the most powerful aspects of emotional control, the ability to transform negative emotions into positive outcomes. Emotions like fear, anger, sadness, and frustration are often seen as obstacles. But what if we told you they could become the very catalysts for your growth and transformation? The truth is, emotions are not inherently good or bad. They are energy, messages that provide insight into our internal states. While we may not always have control over when these emotions arise, we do have control over how we interpret them and, more importantly, how we respond to them. Instead of allowing negative emotions to control your actions, so you can learn to use them as tools for self-improvement, motivation, and positive change. The power of fear, using it as a guide. Let's begin with fear, an emotion that many people seek to avoid at all costs. Fear can be paralyzing, causing us to shrink back from challenges and opportunities. However, fear can also be a powerful motivator when used consciously. Fear often arises when we are about to step outside of our comfort zone, when we are facing the unknown or taking a risk. Instead of seeing fear as a signal to avoid something, you can choose to view it as a signal that you are about to grow. When you feel fear, ask yourself, what is this fear trying to tell me? Is it warning you about a genuine danger, or is it simply a reaction to stepping into the unknown? In many cases, fear is not an indicator of actual threat, but rather a reflection of our anxiety about change, failure, or vulnerability. By acknowledging this, you can reframe fear as a sign that you are pushing your boundaries and moving towards something greater. Fear can be a guide, an invitation to step forward and face new challenges. Whether it's pursuing a new career, entering a new relationship, or taking on a personal project, fear often accompanies the most rewarding experiences. Rather than retreating from fear, choose to lean into it. Use it as the fuel that propels you forward. When you take action in the face of fear, you not only overcome it, but also build resilience and confidence. Turning anger into purposeful action. Let's look at anger. Anger is often seen as a destructive emotion, something to be suppressed or avoided. However, anger, when harnessed correctly, can become a powerful force for positive change. Anger usually arises when we feel wronged, disrespected, or powerless. It's a natural response to perceived injustice or violation of our boundaries. But anger does not have to lead to negative outcomes. In fact, anger can be a catalyst for action. When you feel anger, instead of reacting impulsively, take a moment to reflect on the cause of your anger. Is there an underlying need that hasn't been addressed? Are your boundaries being violated? Are you feeling powerless or unheard? Anger is often a signal that something needs to change, either within yourself or in the situation you're facing. Rather than letting anger consume you or lead to rash decisions, you can choose to channel it into purposeful action. Use anger as fuel to assert yourself, to stand up for what you believe in, or to advocate for change. When you transform anger into constructive action, you turn a potentially destructive emotion into a force for positive transformation. Anger can be a powerful motivator to right wrongs, create boundaries, and make changes in your life that align with your values. Harnessing sadness for reflection and growth. Sadness is another emotion that many people seek to avoid. We associate sadness with loss, disappointment, or grief, and it often feels heavy and overwhelming. However, sadness, like all emotions, carries valuable information. Sadness can be a signal that something is missing in your life, or that you need to mourn a loss or unfulfilled expectation. It can also be a reminder to reconnect with yourself, to reflect on what truly matters, and to make space for healing. No, instead of avoiding sadness or burying it beneath other emotions, allow yourself to feel it fully. Give yourself permission to grieve, to feel the weight of the emotion without judgment. In the process of grieving, you allow yourself to heal. Sadness has a way of opening us up to deeper levels of self-awareness and understanding. It can be the doorway to personal growth, empathy, and a renewed sense of purpose. Rather than seeing sadness as a weakness, view it as an opportunity to reflect on what truly matters to you. What has this sadness revealed about your needs, desires, and values? What can you learn from this emotion that will help you move forward with greater clarity and resilience? Frustration, a pathway to problem solving. Frustration often arises when we feel blocked or hindered in our efforts. It's an emotion that many people experience when they are working hard toward a goal but are met with obstacles or delays. While frustration can feel uncomfortable, it can also be a sign that you are deeply invested in your goal and care about the outcome. Frustration shows that you are pushing towards something meaningful, and when you channel it correctly, it can lead to valuable problem solving. Instead of letting frustration lead to burnout or discouragement, take a step back and ask yourself, what is this frustration telling me? What's not working, and how can I adjust my approach? Frustration is often a signal that you need to reevaluate your strategy or take a different path. It may require you to be more creative, resourceful, or persistent. By transforming frustration into motivation, you can continue moving forward with renewed determination. By learning to view negative emotions as opportunities for growth, rather than obstacles to avoid, you begin to shift your entire relationship with your feelings. Emotions are not something to fear, suppress, or avoid. They are powerful tools that, when harnessed correctly, can propel you toward a more fulfilling life. Chapter 5. Integrating emotional mastery into your life. As you continue on this journey of emotional mastery, it's time to consider how you can weave these practices into the fabric of your everyday life. Emotional control and awareness are not one-time achievements or quick fixes. They are ongoing, evolving skills that require constant attention, reflection, and commitment. To truly master your emotions, it must become a part of your life, embedded in your routine, decisions, and actions. The first step in integrating emotional mastery into your life is to establish a daily practice. Just as you would dedicate time to any important aspect of your personal growth, whether it's exercise, learning, or career development, emotional mastery needs the same level of attention and consistency. The more you make it a part of your routine, the more natural it will become to pause, reflect, and choose how to respond to your emotions. Start by carving out a few moments each day to check in with yourself. This doesn't have to be a lengthy process, just a few minutes of mindful reflection. Ask yourself how you're feeling in the moment and why. Reflect on any emotions that have surfaced throughout the day and how you responded to them. This practice allows you to become more attuned to your emotional landscape, making it easier to catch any negative emotions before they take hold. Consistency is key here. It's not about perfection, but about showing up each day with the intention to improve. You'll begin to notice patterns in your emotional responses. You'll become more aware of your triggers, your habitual reactions, and the thought patterns that drive your emotions. With this awareness, you can begin to shift your responses and take control of your emotional state. Another way to integrate emotional mastery is to apply emotional awareness in real time. In the past, when difficult emotions arose, you may have found yourself swept up in them, reacting impulsively, making decisions that didn't align with your best self. But as you continue to practice, you'll find yourself more able to pause before acting. In those moments of emotional intensity, take a breath and give yourself a moment to reflect. What am I feeling? What is the message behind this emotion? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my values and goals? This pause is crucial. It's the space between the emotion and the action, where you can make a conscious choice. In time, this pause becomes automatic. You'll no longer react mindlessly to your emotions. Instead, you'll respond with clarity, intentionality, and self-control. To further integrate emotional mastery into your life, it's essential to build habits that reinforce your emotional well-being. Healthy habits, such as regular physical exercise, balanced nutrition, sufficient rest, and practices like meditation or journaling, all contribute to your emotional resilience. When you take care of your body and mind, you create a solid foundation for emotional mastery. The stronger and more balanced your physical state, the more equipped you'll be to handle emotional challenges with composure. Additionally, surrounding yourself with positive influences and a supportive network can make a huge difference. The people you spend time with shape your emotional state. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, drama, or criticism, it'll be harder to maintain emotional control. Seek out relationships and environments that nurture your emotional growth. This could mean setting boundaries with toxic people, seeking out supportive communities, or simply spending more time with individuals who uplift and inspire you. One of the most powerful tools in integrating emotional mastery is self-reflection. At the end of each day, take a few moments to reflect on your emotional responses throughout the day. What went well? Where did you react impulsively? What could you have done differently? This process of reflection allows you to learn from your experiences, deepen your emotional understanding, and continue to refine your responses. As you reflect, celebrate the moments when you successfully practiced emotional control. Each time you catch yourself in a negative emotional reaction and choose to respond consciously, you're making progress. These small victories over time accumulate and create lasting change. The path to emotional mastery requires dedication, patience, and a deep commitment to personal growth. But as you integrate these practices into your life, you'll begin to notice profound changes. You'll experience greater peace, clarity, and emotional stability. You'll find that difficult emotions no longer have the power to derail your progress. Instead, they become opportunities for growth, understanding, and transformation. Now that we've explored how to integrate emotional mastery into your daily life, let's discuss how to maintain this practice over time. Emotional mastery is not a destination, but a continuous journey. It's easy to get caught up in the initial excitement of new habits or breakthroughs, but sustaining your progress requires ongoing effort, commitment, and a willingness to adapt as you grow. The first key to maintaining emotional mastery is to embrace the inevitability of setbacks. There will be times when you slip up, when your emotions get the best of you, or when you fail to respond with the level of control you strive for. This is not a sign of failure. It's a natural part of the process. Remember, emotional mastery is about progress, not perfection. It's about learning from each experience, adjusting, and trying again. Each setback is an opportunity to refine your practice and strengthen your resolve. When setbacks happen, avoid the temptation to be overly self-critical. The more you criticize yourself, the more difficult it becomes to regain emotional control. Instead, practice self-compassion in those moments. Recognize that you are human, that emotional fluctuations are natural, and that you are still learning. So treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to a friend who is struggling. This approach helps you bounce back more quickly without getting stuck in negative cycles of self-blame. Another important aspect of maintaining emotional mastery is to revisit your intentions regularly. It's easy to lose sight of your goals and values when life gets busy or overwhelming. This is why it's important to reconnect with your purpose and intentions on a regular basis. Set aside time to reflect on why you started this journey of emotional mastery in the first place. What do you hope to achieve? How do you want to feel in your everyday life? What kind of person do you want to become? By reconnecting with your why, you keep your emotional mastery aligned with your long-term goals. Son, this clarity gives you the strength to stay on course, even when challenges arise. It also helps you to stay motivated when the process feels slow or difficult. Remind yourself that emotional mastery is a lifelong practice, not a quick fix, and that every step you take, no matter how small, is progress. Additionally, celebrating progress is essential for maintaining emotional mastery. Too often, we focus solely on the challenges and obstacles, forgetting to acknowledge how far we've come. Take time to celebrate your successes, even the small ones. When you manage to stay calm in a stressful situation or handle an emotionally charged moment with grace, celebrate it. These moments of success serve as reminders that you are capable and growing. They also help to reinforce the positive behaviors and habits that contribute to emotional mastery. To further maintain your emotional mastery, it's important to nurture your emotional toolkit. Over time, you may encounter new emotional challenges or situations that require different strategies. Having a variety of tools at your disposal gives you the flexibility to respond effectively in different circumstances. This might include practicing mindfulness, using breathing techniques, engaging in physical exercise, or seeking guidance from trusted mentors or therapists. By continually expanding your emotional toolkit, you ensure that you are always equipped to handle whatever life throws your way. Another vital practice for maintaining emotional mastery is mindful reflection. As we mentioned earlier, one's self-reflection is essential for learning from your experiences. Set aside time at the end of each week or month to reflect on your emotional journey. What emotions surfaced during the week? How did you respond to them? Were there any situations where you could have responded differently? What can you learn from those experiences? This regular reflection allows you to identify patterns in your emotional responses and make necessary adjustments. It also helps you track your progress and celebrate the growth you've made. Lastly, as you continue to develop emotional mastery, don't underestimate the power of support. While emotional mastery is an individual journey, it's important to lean on your support network when needed. Share your progress, struggles, and insights with trusted friends, mentors, or family members who can offer encouragement, guidance, and perspective. Sometimes an outside perspective can provide invaluable insight, and having someone to lean on can make the journey feel less isolating. Just as you would lean on others for support in physical, mental, or professional pursuits, don't hesitate to ask for help when navigating emotional challenges. Support systems provide a sense of community and connection, and they remind you that you are not alone in your quest for emotional growth. Over time, as you continue to practice these principles and strategies, you'll notice that emotional mastery becomes more natural. Your emotional responses will be more aligned with your true values and desires, and you'll feel more grounded and centered in every situation. You'll be less reactive, more thoughtful in your responses, and more in control of your emotional life. This transformation is not instantaneous, but it is profound and lasting. Chapter 6. Living a Life of Emotional Freedom. At this stage of our journey, emotional mastery has become more than a concept, it is a way of life. You have learned how to recognize, understand, and respond to your emotions with awareness, discipline, and resilience. You've cultivated the habits, mindsets, and tools necessary to keep your emotions in check and channel them into positive actions. But what happens when you reach a place where emotions no longer dominate your decisions, reactions, or thoughts? What does it look like to live a life of emotional freedom? Emotional freedom doesn't mean living without emotion. It means living without being controlled by emotion. It's about reaching a point where emotions no longer dictate your actions, but instead serve as a guide and source of insight. At this stage, you're in charge of your emotional life. You no longer feel at the mercy of your feelings. You can engage with them freely, fully, and consciously. Living emotionally free means breaking free from the shackles of reactivity. In the past, you may have felt overwhelmed by your emotions. You might have found yourself making decisions impulsively or acting out of frustration, fear, or anger. But as you've practiced emotional awareness and discipline, you have learned to create space between the feeling and the action. This space is where emotional freedom resides. In this space, you have the power to choose your response, to decide how you want to engage with your emotions, and to align your actions with your values rather than your impulses. Living in this way also means no longer allowing past emotions to control your present life. Many of us carry emotional baggage from the past, old hurts, regrets, disappointments, or unhealed wounds that continue to influence our thoughts and behaviors. These emotions are like invisible weights, preventing us from fully engaging with the present moment. But emotional freedom comes when you no longer allow the past to dictate how you respond to the present. You understand that your past experiences do not have to define you. Instead, you choose to respond to each moment with clarity, awareness, and intention, free from the emotional patterns of the past. The journey toward emotional freedom is also about embracing vulnerability. It's about giving yourself permission to feel deeply and to experience your emotions without shame. Emotional freedom comes when you accept that it is okay to be vulnerable, to feel sadness, fear, or even anger. and to express those emotions in a healthy, constructive way. You stop hiding behind walls of emotional suppression or defensiveness, and instead, you allow yourself to feel and heal. This freedom also gives you the power to release judgment, both self-judgment and judgment of others. When you live emotionally free, you no longer judge yourself for having certain emotions or for not always being in control. You let go of the expectation of perfection and embrace the ebb and flow of human experience. Similarly, you begin to understand that everyone experiences emotions in their own way. You no longer judge others for their emotional reactions, but instead, you approach them with empathy, understanding, and compassion. Emotional freedom allows you to create deeper connections with others. When you no longer feel controlled by your own emotions, you can relate to others with authenticity and understanding. You become more empathetic, more present, and more connected. Relationships become healthier and more fulfilling because they are no longer dominated by emotional reactivity or misunderstanding. You are free to express your feelings honestly and listen to the feelings of others with an open heart and mind. This stage also brings a sense of inner peace. When you no longer struggle to control or suppress your emotions, you free up mental and emotional energy that can be directed toward what truly matters to you. Can you experience less internal conflict and stress because your emotions are no longer fighting for attention? Instead, you become a calm observer of your emotional landscape, making conscious choices about how to engage with the world. Living a life of emotional freedom is not about being emotionless or detached. It's about experiencing emotions fully without being consumed by them. It's about being able to acknowledge your feelings, understand their root causes, and choose how to respond in a way that aligns with your goals, values, and well-being. It's about having the emotional control to navigate life's challenges with grace and composure, knowing that your emotional life is in your hands. In this place of emotional freedom, you're no longer a victim of your emotions. Instead, you are their master. You harness their power to create positive change, to motivate yourself toward your goals, and to live a life that is true to who you are. You live with emotional intelligence, emotional resilience, and emotional mastery, using your emotions as the powerful tools they were always meant to be. As we near the final stages of this emotional journey, it's important to reflect on how you can sustain the emotional freedom you've worked so hard to cultivate. Emotional freedom is not a destination, but a lifelong practice that requires ongoing commitment. The principles and strategies you've learned are powerful, but to make them a permanent part of your life, you must actively continue to apply them, adapt them, and evolve with them. One of the keys to lasting change is consistency in practice. Now, you have already begun to shift how you respond to your emotions. But emotional mastery, like any skill, requires regular attention. Life will continue to present new challenges and emotional experiences. Some days will feel easy, and others will feel difficult. But the more you practice emotional awareness, discipline, and control, the easier it will become to manage your emotions with grace and intentionality. This consistency forms the bedrock of emotional freedom, allowing you to remain steady and balanced in the face of life's inevitable ups and downs. Remember that emotional freedom does not mean avoiding difficult emotions. You will still experience pain, fear, frustration, and sadness throughout your life. The difference now is that you will no longer be ruled by them. Instead of pushing them away or letting them dictate your actions, you will meet them with awareness and understanding. You will allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, but you will also maintain the ability to choose how you want to respond, ensuring that your actions align with your values and goals. Another important part of maintaining emotional freedom is the willingness to let go. As you continue to grow and evolve, you may find that certain emotional patterns no longer serve you. Maybe you've been holding on to old grudges, past disappointments, or limiting beliefs about yourself. To live a truly free emotional life, it's important to release these emotional burdens. Holding on to resentment, regret, or fear only weighs you down and prevents you from moving forward with a clear, open heart. Now, letting go doesn't mean forgetting or excusing past hurts. It means choosing to no longer carry them with you. It's about making the conscious decision to release the emotional charge attached to certain experiences so that they no longer control your present. This process of letting go is liberating. It clears the emotional clutter that may be blocking your path and allows you to step forward into the future with a renewed sense of peace and clarity. Emotional freedom also involves embracing change. Life is constantly evolving, and so are you. As you continue to practice emotional mastery, you will likely encounter new layers of emotions, new experiences, and new challenges. The person you are today is not the person you will be in 5, 10, or 20 years. Embrace this evolution and trust that the emotional tools you've developed will continue to serve you as you grow. Each phase of your life will bring new opportunities for emotional growth, and with each one, you'll have the tools and the wisdom to handle whatever comes your way. Living with emotional freedom is about living authentically. When you are no longer controlled by your emotions, you are free to show up in the world as your true self. You are no longer bound by fear of judgment or the desire to please others. You can speak your truth, express your feelings, and live according to your values without being afraid of what others might think. This authenticity is liberating. It allows you to build deeper connections, pursue your goals with confidence, and live a life that is true to who you are, not who others expect you to be. Finally, self-reflection remains a critical practice in maintaining emotional freedom. As you continue to evolve, it's essential to take time to reflect on your emotional state regularly. Ask yourself questions like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my higher self? This ongoing reflection ensures that you stay attuned to your emotions, continue to grow, and remain connected to your authentic self. It keeps you grounded, even when life gets busy or overwhelming. The journey of emotional mastery is not about perfection or never experiencing negative emotions. It is about choosing how to engage with your emotions and how to direct them toward positive action. It is about acknowledging that emotions are a part of life and using them to guide you rather than control you. By consistently practicing emotional awareness, discipline, resilience, and authenticity, you create a life where your emotions no longer dictate your outcomes. Instead, you take charge of your emotions and use them to create the life you truly desire. Emotional freedom is the ability to live fully, to feel deeply, and to act intentionally, all while maintaining a sense of peace, clarity, and control. Chapter 7. Embracing your emotional mastery. Journey. As we approach the final chapter of this emotional mastery journey, it's time to reflect on the transformation that has taken place and to look ahead to how you can continue to grow and evolve. Emotional mastery is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong practice, a path of continuous learning, growth, and self-discovery. And as you stand at this juncture, it's important to acknowledge the progress you've made and the empowered person you're becoming. The journey you've undertaken is about more than just managing your emotions. It's about transforming your relationship with yourself and the world around you. When you learn to master your emotions, you learn to create a life of purpose, fulfillment, and inner peace. You become a conscious creator of your experiences rather than a passive observer. As you reflect on this journey, consider the changes you've experienced. You've learned to recognize your emotions, to understand their messages, and to respond with awareness and intention. You've built the discipline to stay calm and centered, even when life throws challenges your way. You've developed emotional resilience, bouncing back from setbacks with strength and determination. Most importantly, you've embraced the freedom to live authentically, without being controlled by the past or overwhelmed by your feelings. But this is just the beginning. The tools you've gained, the insights you've uncovered, and the practices you've put into place are all part of a greater foundation of emotional growth. The beauty of emotional mastery is that it continues to unfold. You will always encounter new situations that challenge your emotional control. And with each one, you will have the opportunity to deepen your understanding and strengthen your emotional resilience. Living a life of emotional mastery means living with intention. It's about showing up each day with the awareness that your emotions are powerful tools, tools that can be used to shape your life in whatever way you choose. No, you are not a victim of your emotions. You are the master of them. And that mastery allows you to take full ownership of your life, making decisions and taking actions that align with your values and your highest aspirations. Every day will present new opportunities for emotional growth. Whether you encounter joy, sadness, anger, or fear, each emotion is an invitation to become more self-aware, more present, and more intentional in your choices. As you continue to practice the principles of emotional mastery, you will find that your emotional responses become more automatic, less reactive, and more responsive, less driven by impulse, and more guided by purpose. Remember that emotional mastery is not about avoiding uncomfortable feelings. It is about embracing those feelings without being ruled by them. You will still experience moments of frustration, sadness, or anxiety throughout your life, but you will no longer be overwhelmed by them. Instead, you will acknowledge them, process them, and move forward with a sense of clarity and confidence. As you move forward, continue to prioritize your emotional health. This is not a journey that ends. It is a lifelong practice that requires regular attention. Make time each day to check in with yourself, reflect on your emotions, and reconnect with your intentions. Keep building the habits that support emotional mastery, whether through mindfulness, journaling, exercise, or connecting with your support network. And most importantly, keep practicing self-compassion. Emotions are an integral part of who you are, and your journey is not about perfection, but progress. As we near the final stage of this emotional journey, it's important to reflect on how you can sustain the emotional freedom you've worked so hard to cultivate. Emotional freedom is not a destination. It is a lifelong practice that requires ongoing commitment. The principles and strategies you've learned are powerful, but to make them a permanent part of your life, you must actively continue to apply them, adapt them, and evolve with them. One of the keys to maintaining emotional mastery is to embrace the inevitability of setbacks. There will be times when you slip up, when your emotions get the best of you, or when you fail to respond with the level of control you strive for. This is not a sign of failure. It's a natural part of the process. Remember, emotional mastery is about progress, not perfection. It's about learning from each experience, adjusting, and trying again. Each setback is an opportunity to refine your practice and strengthen your resolve. When setbacks happen, avoid the temptation to be overly self-critical. The more you criticize yourself, the more difficult it becomes to regain emotional control. Instead, practice self-compassion in those moments. Recognize that you are human, that emotional fluctuations are natural, and that you are still learning. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to a friend who is struggling. This approach helps you bounce back more quickly, without getting stuck in negative cycles of self-blame. Another important aspect of maintaining emotional freedom is to revisit your intentions regularly. It's easy to lose sight of your goals and values when life gets busy or overwhelming. This is why it's important to reconnect with your purpose and intentions on a regular basis. Set aside time to reflect on why you started this journey of emotional mastery in the first place. What do you hope to achieve? How do you want to feel in your everyday life? What kind of person do you want to become? By reconnecting with your why, you keep your emotional mastery aligned with your long-term goals. This clarity gives you the strength to stay on course, even when challenges arise. It also helps you to stay motivated when the process feels slow or difficult. Remind yourself that emotional mastery is a lifelong practice, not a quick fix, and that every step you take, no matter how small, is progress. Additionally, celebrating progress is essential for maintaining emotional mastery. Too often, we focus solely on the challenges and obstacles, forgetting to acknowledge how far we've come. Take time to celebrate your successes, even the small ones. When you manage to stay calm in a stressful situation or handle an emotionally charged moment with grace, celebrate it. These moments of success serve as reminders that you are capable and growing. They also help to reinforce the positive behaviors and habits that contribute to emotional mastery. To further maintain your emotional mastery, it's important to nurture your emotional toolkit. Over time, you may encounter new emotional challenges or situations that require different strategies. Having a variety of tools at your disposal gives you the flexibility to respond effectively in different circumstances. This might include practicing mindfulness, using breathing techniques, engaging in physical exercise, or seeking guidance from trusted mentors or therapists. By continually expanding your emotional toolkit, you ensure that you are always equipped to handle whatever life throws your way. Another vital practice for maintaining emotional freedom is mindful reflection. As we mentioned earlier, self-reflection is essential for learning from your experiences. Set aside time at the end of each week or month to reflect on your emotional journey. What emotions surfaced during the week? How did you respond to them? Were there any situations where you could have responded differently? What can you learn from those experiences? This regular reflection allows you to identify patterns in your emotional responses and make necessary adjustments. It also helps you track your progress and celebrate the growth you've made. Lastly, as you continue to develop emotional mastery, don't underestimate the power of support. While emotional mastery is an individual journey, it's important to lean on your support network when needed. Share your progress, struggles, and insights with trusted friends, mentors, or family members who can offer encouragement, guidance, and perspective. Sometimes, an outside perspective can provide invaluable insight, and having someone to lean on can make the journey feel less isolating. Just as you would lean on others for support in physical, mental, or professional pursuits, don't hesitate to ask for help when navigating emotional challenges. Support systems provide a sense of community and connection, and they remind you that you are not alone in your quest for emotional growth. Over time, as you continue to practice these principles and strategies, you'll notice that emotional mastery becomes more natural. Your emotional responses will be more aligned with your true values and desires, and you'll feel more grounded and centered in every situation. You'll be less reactive, more thoughtful in your responses, and more in control of your emotional life. This transformation is not instantaneous, but it is profound and lasting. This concludes our journey of emotional mastery. Thank you for taking the time to embark on this transformative process. May you continue to grow, evolve, and live a life filled with emotional freedom, resilience, and purpose.